blessed love and peace. A few addenda. One, for kinfolk who know me, who have my contact information, and additionally, again, we're off the joint. I'm online once a week. That's the modus operandi at the moment, and we've completed the weekly Zoom session joint. So we're staying off that for the moment. In the meanwhile, if anybody wants to contact me, who already has my contact information, whether it's email or if they have the phone, then that's close circle right there. But anyway, as well as obviously the surveillance and everybody else, all the saboteurs of the internet. So close circle, and then a convoluted circle. Anyways, what the invitation is this: you can hit me up and understand, like, I'm most likely not going to get the message until Monday. And in receiving the message, if you're trying to connect on Monday, you want me to hit you back on Monday, then God willing, I'll do that. If you're trying to connect at some other point in person, I can give you a message and connect otherwise. But anyway, that's the basic joint. And if you want me to give you a call or reach out to you on Monday when I'm online, you're welcome to let me know at any point of the week. And when I get the message, God willing, I'll forward that accordingly. Also recognizing, uncertain about like getting all the messages that are forwarded to me, or even all the messages that I forward getting through as well. So just recognizing this is the Wild Wild West, www, and that's that. On another side note, again, just briefly seeing, I've yet to go through the news feed or whatever of just looking at what's suggested for me to watch yet today. However, I do see something about a second assassination attempt. Peace and blessings to Brethren Trump. I don't know what the details are. I haven't looked at it. I just saw one headline. So presumably there's something that happened or whatever. Don't know what the status is on that, but I'm not trying to be a naysayer, and this is actually coming on the heels of an involved conversation in recent days with dear brethren. When I talk about like things like crumbling, I might sound like very biased, kind of like prognostication, whatever. I'm not making a prophecy. We're not making a prophecy. We're not making a wish, and we're not trying to do the hype thing and guide people to any particular decisions based upon hype or fear or anything else like that. It's actually preparation. And the specific thing is just not recognizing the whole. And Karen is a derogatory term, but it's difficult. People know what that's being said when that term is utilized. So basic notion is like for people to prepare for a mass experience of Karenness and whatever the equivalent for men are, but just people short-circuiting. I keep rubbing my nose. I'm recognizing recently it's not a positive habit. But anyways, just when those videos are seen like on an individual basis, people might just like be amused and say, "Oh, that's just pathetic," and people might feel some kind of like psychological kind of like affirmation or like ego boost because it's somebody who's typically not perceived as like ghetto. I guess it's like the European version of being ghetto. And so when people see accent like this, there's this psychological kind of thing of like, oh yeah, okay, that's at least now we have something to joke about in terms for white Americans or whatever. So that's bullshit. And actually, when I've seen a number of those videos a while ago, it's actually painful. I saw one sister in like short circuit in a store after she was blatantly racist or whatever else, and then she gets called out on it, and then like it's obvious like she's going through something, and like she's just sitting there crying like, "Please don't film me, please don't film me." And so it's like, yo. Now people see that, and she's an easy target, just like Rachel Dolezal or whatever else. People are such punk cowards in life. Not everybody, most people, many people, maybe everybody at some point. But when people just find these little things, even when people have been victimized themselves for generations, and then find somebody like that, and then they just like have the opportunity to unload on them, it's like, you shut the fuck up, you punk ass coward. So all that being said, what we are communicating is preparation for a mass experience of Karenness, of people just being out of their minds, like in a severe, irrational, and an undetermined length kind of way, particularly amidst the pressures of the political system or the political elections or whatever. what we try to say is distant away from it as possible. But what we do recognize, as I communicated before, is that the United States is scrambling for a solution, and the needed solution is for a narrative that people can buy in enough just to keep doing what people are doing, and that prospect is becoming slimmer and slimmer and slimmer. One of the evidence, huge evidence, when people look at it, is just looking at who the candidates are. The only new blood, quote unquote, I gotta do my quotation marks now again. The only new blood, political wise, that the United States has been able to conjure in a substantial way is people who are mixed. Obama and Harris. Kamala, I don't listen to a lot of things. I don't even think I've heard her speak further than 2 minutes, perhaps. But there's been no new blood in over 20 years, in a quarter of a century. Everything has been a recycling. The people, the references, the frames of reference, and additionally has been established for over 30, 40 years. There's been no new blood leadership within the government, particularly specifically pertaining to presidential presidents and particularly presidential candidates. So just the facts of what I'm talking about is this: the newest blood. Let's go all the way back to the 80s. Ronald Reagan was like the new blood at that point, kind of, sort of, but he was a Hollywood star, and that's where he gets his claim to fame. He wasn't a Washington insider or whatever. He was the governor of California for a while before, as a preparatory stage. But this is a narrative, and so it becomes like Ronald Reagan kind of like signifies the transition of the political theater literally turning into an entertainment theater. He signifies that particularly. Now, there might have been entertainers before him or otherwise, and the characteristic of a politician is one who can speak and be charismatic and have some basic knowledge. But even him, he was being clowned in the 80s about being kind of somewhat obtuse or otherwise. Anyways, his successor is George Bush, a hard line, like he's like deep in the game, CIA director, whatever before that. But he's old blood. He's old blood. In terms of representing like the ideas, the experience of the recent generations, and additionally, he's old blood. He's old school, and that's not necessarily a negative thing in and of itself. But watch how this progresses. So then after him, the last new blood that the United States has, that's like proper WASP, is Bill Clinton, and plus he comes from very modest means. I think growing up somewhat, not necessarily with a silver spoon in his mouth or otherwise, and kind of like, I won't say sharks his way, but I mean he makes his way through Georgetown, Harvard Law, and additionally. So he's somebody who's relatable to the masses, particularly to the proletariat. He's not the old blood. He's not the old regime or the whatever. So after him, George Bush II, or George W., a son of the previous George Bush. So right there, that's not new blood. George Bush has his own charisma, his own kind of blue collar kind of relatability, just because he's kind of like coming from Texas with big guns or whatever. However, he's still part of the old story, the old narrative. And I don't mean old in a negative way per se, but it's just like there is an absence of that new vibrancy and that resonance that people need in terms of buying into and identifying further in a meaningful way, particularly amongst 350 million people. So after George Bush, then there's, is that Obama? Yeah. So mind you, 8 years of Bush and then 8 years of Obama. Now, Obama is the new blood. He comes from comparatively modest background, and he's new blood. Literally, he's mixed. He's in the blood is directly from Africa on the mixed side. Otherwise, it's his American war. So that was a lifeblood. That was an infusion in terms of the American politics, in terms of imagination, in terms of like charisma and copaceticness, relatability, resonance, and additionally, people were fiends for that. Smoked it like crack. And that's somewhat derogatory, but we're talking about very elitist mindset. So, anyways, that's about as clean as it's going to be for the moment. Peace and blessings to all kinfolk, and I don't mean that in a pejorative, bypassing kind of way, but doing the best, mindful that I'm out in the public, and there's already static, so people just seeing me do this. So it might be one of the reasons why it's very quiet right now. Anyways, continuing on. Um, that was the new blood. That was the new blood infusion. That was very different, and it was imported new blood, first generation imported new blood, and amidst all of the vitriol and everything else like that, obviously America needed it very badly. 2 terms after that, Trump. Trump is not new blood. Trump has been around since the 80s. Trump has been a pop culture cliche since the 80s. Listen to Tupac's lyrics. Listen to hip hop lyrics from the 80s that talk about Trump. That's how established, old school, old blood Trump is in terms of political vibrancy. That's how and that's what the United States has to work with. And peace and blessings with President Trump. I watched a number of The Apprentice episodes because, man, what was I doing watching TV anyways? But anyways, that's facts, and that's what precipitates his transition into the political theater through that as well. But still, that's old blood, and that old blood signifies a desperation for solutions, because there's an absence of other blood, presumably, that can fill the role. So Kamala Biden is kind of like he's old blood that was basically willing to take a subordinate role to the new blood of being Obama's vice president, and then through that kind of just like de facto going through the motions without there being another viable candidate. Hillary Clinton, again, after her involvement, becomes quasi old blood, but I guess not new blood enough to be elected, at least at that point. And now there's Kamala Harris, another new blood, but again, I mean, just the whole prospect. And this is somewhat of a reach, and we're not trying to make again prognostications and definitive prophecies, whatever else, but just looking at the nature of things. The nature of the republic is one where nobody is number one. Men have to quell their egos and take some type of solace in the perception or the recognition of no man is number one. So in that, it's acceptable for any man to be number two, and then even people to be resort to 3, 4, or 5, or 6. The point of that is that every man has to check himself in a republic, and that's a tenacious thing. And what it does is it cultivates a culture where the authority of women becomes further prominent, and it's easier for a man to look at a woman in a position of authority than it is for him to see a man over him, in many ways. And there's a lot of different considerations of psychology concerning that, but that's one of the things that makes it easier for men to tolerate a republic rather than being a number two in a monarchy or otherwise, where the lines are very definitive and further. What it basically cultivates is a disinterest in politics in general. But people don't value themselves in what the government is doing, and they value themselves in terms of exploits of materiality, economics, capitalism, or otherwise. And the politics is just like the theater for the ignorant or the impotent, so the alpha males invest themselves within the exploits of capitalism and materiality, and have like side comments or whatever that to say about politics, just as a way of appeasing ego, and the pragmatics of keeping the economics continuing. So that's coherent, generally speaking. It's a little bit convoluted, but that's pretty much what it is. So basically, the point of this is that's the man's psyche. For the women's psyche, obviously, women have the relationship with men, have a lot of patience with men through thousands of years, experienced that role of conventional subordinate or domestic subordinate. But when we recognize the true nature of woman and womanhood and femininity, we recognize the power that exists in women, and that's no cap, that's no bullshit, that's facts. Now that being said, what we also recognize is that the extreme severe competition between women as well. And as much as difficult it is for a man to tolerate another man's authority over himself, what we observe through the generations since the ancients to this day is how much further significantly difficult and severely difficult it is for a woman to accept that, to accept another woman's official authority over herself. Now, in a republic, there's the observation of the many women of the society being able to tolerate any other man being in that position of presidency, particularly recognizing that it's only going to be for 4 years. But the prospect of a woman being in that position officially and referred to as the number one over all the others, it might be somewhat excessive. How you doing, sister? Más o menos. It may be somewhat excessive, and that's where the concerns about the short circuiting emerge. It's unprecedented, and people can look to all the different countries, Latin American countries, additionally, where there have been female presidents, Deutschland, and additionally, first of all, Latin countries are different than Deutschland. Deutschland is an indigenous society. There's still the remnants of feudalism and monarchies, and additionally, the hierarchies, the bloodlines, and otherwise. So there are other ways for people to invest themselves indigenously in Europe than just in democracy. Even in the constitutional monarchies of Britain, Denmark, Sweden, and otherwise. Even we can talk about Spain, we can talk about Italia, and additionally, there's still this. First of all, there's this indigeneity. So the politics is not the end all to be all, as it is within America. Kind of, sort of. I just talked about economics. That's part of it. I mean, the simple thing about the United States is that it's about taking. That's all that the United States is take. That's it. It's the religiosity, it's the politics, it's the economics, take. That's plain and simple. But one word, take. That's it. So that's how people's identities, identity politics, gender politics, sexual politics, and everything else like that is just based upon take. That's it. And when that ability to take is infringed upon, then people feel some kind of way. Anyways, so in other countries, there's an indigenous experience, particularly on the Eastern Hemisphere, so that people aren't so invested in the political system itself per se. Even when people get all propagandized and otherwise, there are other things that people look to within themselves to get some type of identity and sense of self and value. In Latin America, it's different because most people are not, most of the people who are at the hierarchies do not identify predominantly as being indigenous. Most people are indigenous. However, when talking about, again, females being, women being presidents of nations, I'm trying to think of examples of that, but again, it's different than the United States because there is actually, that's interesting to think about, like how the experience of the existence of indigeneity within people's selves and culture affects how people identify, so as to how much people invest within the political system. All that being said, the actuality at the end of the day is that America is the behemoth, and whatever the politics are in any other country in the neighborhood of the United States, it's comparatively mundane and infiltrated by the United States politically as well as economically, so that, like, America is the big wig. So point being that even if when a woman is elected a president of another nation here in the immediate vicinity, it's less of the implications are much less than the United States itself, just because the United States is essentially the epitome of that political hierarchy and elitism and imperialism. So that being said, I don't know if I addressed that specifically satisfactorily, but the gist of it is there. The point is that there's a lot of stake involved in terms of American politics, or at least the theater of politics, and a woman being proclaimed as the number one can be expected to trigger a short circuitry, particularly amidst the women civilian or citizenship experience and population. It's not a wish. It's not. This is not communicated with the intention of skewing any election results or whatever else. It's all in the narrative and the script, anyways. So I'm listening to this lisp too. This thing. So I gotta work on that. It's just communicating awareness of actuality and recognizing, like it is important to recognize the propensity of such short circuitry because that affects people's lives regardless of what people's politics are or citizenship or otherwise. And so, as I said it before in the previous joint, preparing for a mass experience of caringness. And that's men too. I don't know what the term is for men, but that's what it is. So there's that. Again, peace and blessings to all. I almost look chocolate. The milk has almost been, I won't say evaporated, but anyway, I'm not jokey right now. The leaves are changing though. The wind continues to blow. The answer. It's a Bob Dylan song that I'm referencing, but anyway. How many roads must a man walk on before he is called a man? All them joints. So that's pretty much it. Again, all thanks and praise the Most High Elohim. Blessed love and peace and Rastafari.